a big round of applause for Paul. Really good. Yeah, I thought she did very well, so thank you, Brooke. So what high performers do differently? So, as I said, I've worked with lots of high performers, but this is for you. This is what can you take from today which might help you in any way possible. And sometimes with these talks, it might be just one or two things that you might say, yeah, that will really help. Because just making one little change can change everything. So I thought I'd start with something nice and easy. This book's coming out soon. I actually wrote this book about 20 years ago. BBC did an article, and then I rewrote it. So I thought I'd open up with something relaxing, and Toby the Championship Burper, which is one of the poems from this. And for some reason, this is always better with a northern accent. So, Toby, Championship Burper, burped all night and all day. He burped at school in his bedroom. He burped in the railway. Toby, Championship Burper, burped so loud and so deep, it stopped his friends from all eating, prevented his family from sleep. Now Toby, Championship Burper, was stopped from burping and ought. No gas that collected in his stomach was allowed to be forced through his throat. His mother explained to poor Toby that burping was too impolite. He was finding the birds and the babies and keeping the street up at night. Toby, the Championship Burper, was upset by this change in the law. The act that he loved and was good at was silenced for him evermore. One evening when Toby were walking, he saw fire engulfing his school. The fire engines failing to quell it, he decided to abandon this rule. He built up the wind in his stomach, and as loud as a thunderous shout, he burped the burp of the decade, then burped the fire right out. Now Toby, the Championship Burper, were hero amongst women and men. The mayor of the village decided that Toby could burp once again. Thank you. It's always good doing what you like to do, however silly it might be. So tennis player, this AI's made this. When I say who is she doesn't actually exist. But it's a big question, who is she? What's she gone through to get to where she's at? You know, she's focused, she's ready, she's in the flow, she's obviously very fit. You know, is she in the zone? Has anyone heard what the zone is? Yeah? And who here would like to be in a state where things just flow? I'd like that. Anyone else here? In a state where you're actually thinking your mind spread apart, all those concerns have gone and you're just so focused, you actually do 2 or 3 times as much as you ever thought you could. And that's what athletes do, getting in the zone. So that may be one of the things that you can take home today. So how many times has she hit that shot to make it happen? She's been hitting that shot since she was probably 3 or 4 years old. Yeah, so if you add that out. So one of the reasons to do this talk, because obviously I don't think there's any athletes in the room, although of course every one of you looks like an athlete. But of course we know we've got a supercar there, and this supercar is an amazing car, has amazing technology. But we do know that in 10 years or less, a lot of that technology is going to be in the simple car. So in other words, just like cars will evolve from the better cars, again, if you understand how people can really achieve a lot, then you can learn from them and take those pieces into your own life in whatever area you want to achieve. So, fulfilling your purpose. Purpose is always very important. And one of the things is we often limit ourselves by thinking we can't achieve things. And actually, when a tennis player starts, they can't figure out how to become number one. But somebody does become number one, and that's really important. So choosing the purpose, something that fills you up. Often we have, if you look at my old speeches, I talk a lot about this, we often have a million excuses why you can't do your purpose. Which is, I'm too old, I'm too tired, I'm too this, I'm too poor, I'm too whatever. But actually, people achieve amazing things. And people have done amazing things after they've been 70 years old. So a lot of the excuses are taking us away from actually achieving what we really, really want to achieve. So one of the reasons as well, which I'll be talking about later, is I think we've been sold this illusion of to be successful you have to be comfortable. You have a comfortable retirement, a comfortable home, a comfortable car. And actually, I don't think we were made to be comfortable. We were made to be out there. As somebody once said, a boat is safe in the harbour, but it wasn't made for that. And so, like myself, doing these talks is not the most comfortable. Brooke, if you don't mind me saying, actually it's not the most comfortable thing for her to come up and introduce me. But she did it, she went over her comfort zone, which is why she yeah, why don't we give another round of applause to her. And if you give a round of applause to yourself for actually being here, coming out of your comfort zone on a very English sort of evening, isn't it, with the weather? So what can I take from them to fill my purpose? So athletes become the best because of science in many ways. In other words, first of all, they're built for what they do. So if you're going to get to somebody to number one, actually if they're not built for that sport, they're not going to get there. There's a huge difference between a 100-meter sprinter. The actual fibres of their muscles, their simple fast twitch fibres, are very different than a marathon runner. Which is why a marathon runner can't, because they have non-fatigable fibres but aren't very fast. So you actually, when you're sort of choosing your purpose in life, it's something that really fits you, even though it's bigger than you think you can achieve. They put the right thoughts into becoming a winner. So to become a winner, you've got to choose, I want to be a winner. If you want to choose something, you need to put in the thoughts according to where you want to go. So a lot of our thoughts is, I can't do this, I'm that, this is going to wrong. Those thoughts may not take you to where you want to go. So a lot of entrepreneurs, when it's like a business plan, they make a business plan, they say, this is what I want to do, this is the actions I need to take. But actually they probably need the right thought process to get there as well. I'm the right person to do this, I'm going to keep going when it gets tough. So actually putting the right thoughts into your head makes such a difference. They'll be single-minded with this. So sometimes they can be very selfish in many ways. And to actually achieve, they have to be selfish. And the quick word about selfish and selflessness, and this can be quite useful, is we always think if I say you're selfish, I'm giving you an insult, and if I say you're selfless, I'm giving you a compliment. Actually, like everything in life, selfish and selflessness are basically two ends of the spectrum. And what we need in life is to find the balance. If you're ill with flu, you probably need to be very selfish. If you've got kids and they need help, you probably need to be very selfless. It's always finding that balance. They'll take the right actions continually, and that's really important. There's a number of to make something happen, you have to do the right actions, and that's clear, and it's keep doing the right actions. A lot of people do a few actions, it works a little bit, and then it doesn't work perfectly, and they stop those actions. They bounce back quickly, so when anything goes wrong, the athletes will come back, and they'll dust themselves down, especially after an injury, and they'll get back on there. And as they reach the peak, they rise their standards even harder. They'll work harder and harder. So does anyone know about Ronaldo, the footballer? Anyone heard of him? Any good? Yeah, he actually is possibly the best footballer in the world. Some people say Messi is. But he actually trained after we played for United. They said when everyone finished training, even though he was the best in the team, he trained 2 more hours afterwards. So he put more effort in because he believed he was the best. So they dream big as well, and that's something worth doing. You know, what if my life is, do I want to achieve out of my life? They want to be number one. How will it feel? How will it be? They don't really want to be just a normal tennis player, sort of playing at a low level. They want to be number one, and they will dream that. They're willing to sacrifice. That's always important. They focus 100% on the goal. So everything they do is about their goal. They hate losing a lot of the time. And where were we? Oh, wait. And an injury that might stop them may feel like a death sentence. It really can be that bad because they're so focused. So maybe just for a second, what dream could you guys have that you want to do? Why don't you just chat with each other for a minute? Because I think, I like other people working. So why don't you do that just for a minute? What big goal could you choose? You don't have to stick with it, just make it fun. Just for a couple of minutes. probably enough. I'm not giving you too much time. So, does anyone want to share one of their big goals? You don't have to make it happen. We're not going to get you to sign a contract tonight. Has anyone got something they want to do? So, no one? Build an orphanage.
And a widow.
And
A widow.
a widow.
And get the school.
And the school. So you want to build, can you see in your mind?
Yes.
You guys? Are you working together on this, you two?
No, that's my dream.
That's your dream. Well, maybe
Yes.
it's always good to get other people. But actually, that's where you start. Because when you say that, did anyone see the big smile on these young ladies' faces? They're smiling, they're happy because they're focused on what they really, really want. And actually, that's the start of creating it. And it's probably a lot bigger than you think you can achieve. But people do achieve it, you know. But you have to keep focusing on it and, yeah, getting help from elsewhere. So, okay. So interestingly enough, they did a study in one of the Olympics, and they asked athletes if they could take a pill. No one would know they've taken the pill, and they would win their event, but they would be dead in 5 years because they took the pill. Would you take the pill? What percentage do you think of athletes going to the Olympics said, yeah, I'd take that pill even though I was not going to be here in 5 years?
50%.
It was 50%, yeah. So half the people thought that winning the Olympic medal was more important than actually living beyond that. They're so focused in all of that. So it just shows you the focus level that they have. So, fundamental questions. So often when I get athletes, so I'm doing quite a few athletes at the moment, so a lot of youngsters I'm doing with football and tennis, and I've got a golfer as well. And one of the things is, who are they actually when you win the title? Or my question would be, who exactly would you be if you've now running this orphanage? That's the question. Who is that person? Because it's not the same person as you are now. And that's really good. So it's really useful when I'm training somebody because we're seeing where we need to go. We're here, we need to go to there. And there's lots of things that often need to change. How do we get there? And often fundamental questions to answer. So who do I need to be to get to what I choose? So we'll show you an example in a minute. What do I have to give up? Often, you know, if you're an athlete, you have to give up bed at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. You'd be amazed how you need to keep doing that. What thinking process do I need? If they actually, just like training their muscles, they will train their brain. They will tell themselves between each point, I'll get them to get their thoughts together, to have a certain thought that they'll have during each point. And what actions, habits do they need to succeed? Because at the end of the day, if we really want to do something, we keep having to do it every day. And this is an example. If somebody's looking for a partner, you can see that. The question is not what partner I can find, is who am I going to be in the relationship? Who do I have to be? And it's really important. So when you're choosing what you want to do next in your life, who am I going to be? It's going to be different than you are now because you're not there at this point. And it's not to make anybody wrong or bad that you're where you're at the moment. We just know that to create what you really need to create, you have to change who you are, how you think, and the actions you take. And that's what athletes are like. So, okay, there you go. So, with a new client, what is a true heartfelt goal? What do they really want? If they don't really want it, I'm not going to work with them. They've got to really want what they want. Sometimes people consider, I'm doing this because my family wants it, or I don't know what else to do. No, they've got to 100% want what they're doing. And are they willing to sacrifice? So when you start with clients as well, what are their true beliefs of who they are? And this is really important because when we grow up, we often, we've got an inner belief who you are. We've often got a line that's a negative line that we've got from childhood. So a lot of us have, I'm worthless, I'm stupid, I'm unlovable. And it's really important to catch those lines. There's more lines than that. That when we get bad and things are difficult, that line comes in, that I'm not that person. And actually it's really useful to understand that because what we find is that when you look at who they think they are, actually they probably have to change that. They have to change the fact that I'm not good enough, or I'm this, that, the other. And it's the inner child, when things get tough, takes over. So believe it or not, our brain has the 7-year-old us still in there. And when life gets difficult, often the adult walks away and the child comes back. So on court, when it's a difficult point, you've got a 7-year-old child there. So we actually do a lot of work with the inner child and clicking somebody from an inner child back to an adult. And that's important for all of us. Does anyone feel that? Does anyone? I certainly feel that a lot of the time. Yeah, we all do. It's how the brain works. And actually, when people are finding things difficult and getting anxious and things happen, sometimes it's about clicking from inner child back to adult. It's a bit like you're watching a horror film. You don't want to treat the horror film. You just want to turn over to Disney. Although from what I hear about Disney, I think that's a bit of a horror film as well sometimes. But yes. So, are you all good, by the way?
Yes.
Yes, good. Self-belief is really important. They've got to believe in themselves. There's always limiting factors, and we'll go into the big limiting factor in a minute. And one of the things, if I'm going to work with somebody, their ability to listen and learn. I think as we get older, we've sort of been taught that we don't need to learn anything, and it's a real weakness, for someone to say something about our behaviour or the way we think or the way we do. Actually, we all need that. We need to be every day looking at ourselves and learning about ourselves. I mean, I see it quite a lot. We have people who park in our car park, our doctor's car park, and quite a few people park in the disabled bay of a doctor's surgery, and they'll go to the beach. No, it's true. We have loads of them, and we go up and ask them to move or whatever, and they shout at us, "How dare you do this? How dare?" And it's like it's really bad. And in fact, some of the reception, they feel threatened by these people. But then we have some people who can't park in the bay and miss their appointment, but they're not teachable. There's a lot of unteachability. You think if we're in a state of, I've done wrong today, because we all do wrong all the time, but I'm willing to learn and I want to be better. So every time I do a talk, I do the same with my players when they play a game. What are the 3 things I did well, but what are the 3 things I'll do better next time? Every single one. And that really, and it's not to beat myself up or anything like that. I know I can do a better talk next time, and then the next time, because that's life, and hopefully I'll get better and better. So, relationship with the word should. Does anyone understand that one? No, an ability to hear or say no. They're 2 of the big ones. Has anyone heard the expression shoulding yourself? Yeah? Does anyone here go, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have? Anyone here? You can be honest. Yeah, we all do that, or the other one is other people do, you should do this and you should do that. So I think the people who park in our disabled bay have the you should rather than the I should. Thank you. Not that, but I think about people parking in that bay. So we have the I should do this, I should do that, and that often comes from childhood. But can we prove those shoulds? So I have some clients, and they go, well, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have played better, I should have hit the ball like this, and they'll actually feel like that in between points, or when they're doing the golf or football, and they're not focused on the next point because they're beating themselves up that they should have done better on the last point. So actually getting refocused and getting in the zone is so important. And the ability to hear or say no, that's so important. Have you noticed some people can't hear no, and some people, I don't know if anyone here finds it difficult to say no. Quite a few of us probably have moments where we can't say no. But actually boundaries is really important with players. So how does the mind work best? By the way, I'm doing quite a lot today, and I'm going to put this on YouTube. I thought it's good to do an overall thing, so it's quite a lot in one session. But I think it's worthwhile because there'll be bits you can pull out and watch again on YouTube. Any questions so far, by the way? You all seem happy and yeah. So the brains work different in different people. So we have sort of kinesthetic. Does anyone know what kinesthetic might mean? It's all that. It's how the brain works. But yeah. Okay. So who here on a holiday? So can I take a volunteer from the audience? Okay, yes, thank you, Arena. So my question is, describe a recent holiday.
My recent holiday?
Yeah.
I was just
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's such a good time.
You had such a good time. Okay, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
Okay, that is completely kinesthetic.
Yeah.
In other words, Rowena described an emotion. Right? Some of you, if I said you went on holiday, you say, oh, I went to the beach, the sea was so blue. Right? So some works in visual, some kinesthetic. And kinesthetic people, often they're sort of drawn back to the past a little bit. And it's brilliant, you can feel other people's feelings and it's brilliant in that way. But sometimes you can get lost in feeling too kinesthetic. Whereas the visual people, as I said, they will just see visual things. Their brain works in this visual thing. And so they will just see vision. In a way that makes life easier. So they just say, no, I'm going to win this, I'm going to create this. A lot of entrepreneurs are visualizers rather than kinesthetic because people who create the future are called visionaries. And the reason they're called visionaries is they see the future. The future is sort of created by vision, the past is sort of stored by emotion. So that's why kinesthetics are visual. And often when you're talking to a player, I need to know that. Because if I say to a player, I want you to hit it like this, and you can see the way it hits, and he's very kinesthetic, he won't get it. Whereas if I'm like, well, remember the feeling you had last time you hit the ball? So it's really important to understand how your brain works. And often, if you're lacking in one area, we need to improve it. So if somebody's very kinesthetic, as say a golfer, I want to turn him to be more visual, and I'll work on him being more visual in the way he thinks. And about a third are visual, a third are kinesthetic, and about a third of us are a mixture of the two. There is auditory, which is about 1%. So one of the things I will talk about is how to increase the weak side of thinking in their game. It's pretty important. So we want to define the winner within. You know, how do you feel? Who are you? Who is a winner? Because often when I start with players, I don't actually make them winners to start with. I'm trying to get their baseline of who they think they are, what they're doing. And winning is sort of the end stage. Identify their weak side. So what's brilliant, when somebody loses, it's actually gold dust for me. Why did you lose? What was it in your game? And they often say, well, actually, I'm not very good at my backhand, or I'm not very good at defending. And so we'll work on those things. Build the winner's mindset, train the weak side, and live and act like a winner. So, in a sense, a lot of what we do is we have to walk into this person that's going to be successful. They have to imagine it first. Virtually all of the people have won the game before they've started. Because if I tell you, so if I say you've got your orphanage going, you probably think you're a bit of a fraud. And most of us think of ourselves as a fraud if we're going beyond what we've done before. Who am I to do this? Who am I to do that? And that's a protection in the brain, because the subconscious brain is created to allow us to survive, not to thrive. It wants you to stay in the comfort zone. It wants you to stay exactly where you are because you're safe. But it won't allow you to be the person that maybe you truly were created to be, or who you truly want to be. And that's the important thing. So your brain is going to throw up loads of stuff. I'm not good enough, I'm this, who am I to do this? And sometimes, sort of from childhood, you might have parents or friends who are like, who do you think you are to do this? So it's sort of reinforced in that from childhood. But of course, we all have so much potential. I think the number of connections in our brain is in the trillions, not the billions. We're so amazing, all of us. All of us can create amazing things. So a lot of it is letting the bad things go and putting the good thoughts in. And one of the things people often get wrong is that if somebody's got a negative thought, they're going to fight that negative thought. You're wrong, no I'm not, I'm good, I'm bad. It's this whole fight. It's like somebody's punching you and you're going to block it. That gives a lot of energy to where you don't want to go. So whenever anyone gets a negative thought, actually just let it go. Don't even challenge it. Just let it fly through the brain, just carry on. A bit like if somebody's punching, move out of the way, let this punch go and walk in the opposite direction. And so when you get a negative thought, you can just let it go and say, that is a thought, it's a truth, but actually another truth is, I am going to succeed, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to work harder because this is where I am. So you create the thoughts where you want to go. You don't fight the negative thoughts. Where you put your energy is where you create what you're going to create. And this is so important in athletes. They need to be clear and just focus. If they lose a point and they're going, that's wrong or bad, then they're probably going to miss the next shot. Whereas they're going, I'm letting that shot go, now what? What am I going to do next? How am I going to do this shot? I'm going to play even better because I missed that shot. So, what is stopping most people? And it's the limit we've given ourselves. And how old are we when we decide what our limit is? Any idea? Pardon?
7.
Yeah, you've been to my talk before, haven't you? The old saying, show me the boy of 7. Thank you, Sharon. Show me the boy of 7, I'll show you the man. We've actually created as a child our limit. Does anyone know what flea circus is? Has anyone ever been there? So flea apparently used to be, yeah, there you go, we've got, so what they do is they have fleas, and when they're born, they put them in these big glass tubes, and they jump up and they hit their head on the top of the tube, and they do that 2 or 3 times, and then they realise they're never able to jump higher than that level, and they'll do different levels for different fleas, so it looks really clever. But for the rest of their lives, they'll only ever jump up the height that they believe they can jump up to, even though they've removed the jars. There was a thing about elephants that were in a circus, and because as baby elephants, they'd had their legs tied to a stake and couldn't move, when there was a fire and they clearly could pull the stakes up as adults, they didn't think they could and they died in the fire. Very sad. So we limit ourselves from our childhood. So if you think about, and we can live the rest of our lives like that, but we don't have to, because it's not the truth, it's a truth. We've told ourselves how good we are, and it's the same with athletes. Where have they put their level? Where have they put their limit? Because we want to put their limit and they're winning. There's no point going for half-baked things. Let's go for the top. Let's go for number 1. And that's really, really important. So fear and doubt and comfort zone. So when people are finding it really difficult, it's the 7-year-old that's often having a problem, which is why quite often we need to go back. It's called inner child psychodynamics, if people are going with psychologists doing this kind of thing. But actually, they often feel, I'm a 7-year-old now, God, my brain pattern is, I feel like a kid. And you've gone into that. So actually, you need to parent that child. Because a lot of people, when they feel like that, they start shouting and screaming at themselves, which is shouting and screaming at a 7-year-old to you. It's a bit like a young 7-year-old kid. Hopefully you wouldn't scream and shout at them if they're having difficulties. You'd give them a hug and you'd love them. And as an adult, you'd say, actually, this isn't your game. I'm going to take over. And actually, in your own mind, people can do that. And so, realizing that people slip into the 7-year-old you, into the inner child, and being able to click back to the adult, one, helps the 7-year-old child, and also puts you back in adult mode. Because I've known myself, I remember as I was in a, I was on holiday and I was going around and I was just having I should do this, I should do that, I was shooting myself. I'm good at shooting myself at times. And I realised I'd gone into 7-year-old mode. So I sort of mentally said, well, what do you want to do to the 7-year-old? And he wanted to go jet skiing, so in my mind I sent him jet skiing. Sounds a bit strange, but he went jet skiing, he was happy, and suddenly I became, the 27-year-old that I am today. But it's a really interesting trick, and obviously what I want to do with my sports people is click them out of bad habits into good habits straight away, and that's part of what we do. When you need to be a winner. So one of the things which is so important, that actually they will train like every single training session is key. So actually, some of the Liverpool players said when they were under Klopp, who was their manager of the football team, they won the European Cup and they won the league, was that they trained so hard that when they were so grateful there was a match because it was so easy. And that's what they do. They trained as if their life depended on it, and that's what you have to do. And they trained all the time. So actually, when they got to do the thing, it was easy for them in a thing. So, one of the questions I would ask, and we are going to get you to do some work later on, by the way. I hope you're all happy to join in. Can't have the faces. So, yeah, especially you all. So, one of the questions, you're standing on centre court, you're on match point and you win. Who is that person again on the centre court? Again, that's one of the questions that I will ask my You know, if I'm doing a tennis play, who is that person who's about to serve for the match? Who is it? It's probably not the person that I meet for the first time because they wouldn't meet me. You know, and they do. It's somebody who's trained every day. It's somebody who's focused. It's somebody who's put the right thoughts into their mind according to where they want to go, rather than the thoughts that they come in with when we first start. Because the thoughts create the actions, and the actions create the results. So if we do stuff psychologically with people, it's not like I'll do sessions with somebody and change everything and suddenly they're number one. Often their actions start and then continue to be the actions of a winner. It's a bit like, I think it's great doing an orphanage. You create it in your mind, but then there's a lot of actions to go from A to B. But if you're in the right mindset going, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to do what it takes, then you keep doing it. And the day that you say, I can't do this, I feel like I'm lost, is the best day, because that's the day that most people will quit, but it's actually the day that you will, if you keep going, you're probably just about to get what you want to get. So, who here goes to the gym? I'm sure there's lots of you go to the gym. Who's been at the gym and you're working harder and harder at the gym, and you just can't get anywhere? You're doing the same weights, the same thing, running. You're just not getting any fitter, but you're working really hard. And you're getting worse and worse, more and more tired. And you want to give up, but you carry on. And then one day you go to the gym, and that weight that you couldn't lift suddenly becomes really light. Suddenly you're running at a faster speed. Does that happen to anybody? Yeah. Because you've gone through that boundary. It's like going, I think things are stepwise. So again, this is on some of my earlier talks. If you want, you can watch it on YouTube. So as you're walking along the stair towards your goal, it's getting dark and dark. It's like there's a light above. And it gets so dark just about the time you're about to get what you want. And a lot of people don't carry on, so it's really important. Yeah. So again, who is that person? Responsibility is really important. Now, what is responsibility? Any ideas? I did a whole talk. Go on, Marina wants to jump in. The hint's on there anyway.
Responsibility to me is that you make decision what you want to do, and then you go for that. It's like having a goal.
Yeah.
So to me, responsibility is once you make your mind, you're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, so you make it happen, so it's your responsibility. Who here, if I said you're responsible, like you're a footballer, I said this to the football team I'm dealing with, and you lose a goal, and I say it's your responsibility to get this team to get back on and score their own goal. How many would feel negative about that they should feel blame, shame, guilt? Anyone? Okay, anyone here who doesn't want to put their hand up and feels that? Okay. So the responsibility, as it says, is the ability to respond. Actually, if there's blame, shame, and a lot of sports people, especially when I start with them, feel that way. They feel blame and shame if I say take responsibility. But actually, the responsibility is the ability to respond. That's it. And so if you feel blame and shame and guilt and all those things, actually you're taking away the energy from being able to respond. So again, another really important thing is for them to be able to respond and take responsibility for everything they do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But again, if you want to take responsibility and you feel bad about it, it's because you combine responsibility with shame, blame, and all those things. And actually, it's not the same thing. You need to let those go. Okay. And again, if your opponent's beating you, often it's your thinking. Again, when you're playing, we'll talk in a minute about internal, external locus of control. He might be beating you, but you're beating you. You can do what you can do. You need to look at what you're thinking, what you're doing, what your emotions are, and improving things. So, does anyone have any idea what internal versus external locus of control is? Yeah.
Like the ability to sort of control your own life through like expectations. Like I have the ability to change the outcome.
Yes.
External
And not allowing external things to affect your thinking or your emotions. Because some people, if you're playing and somebody's on the other side of the court saying, you're rubbish, you're this, oh, look at that, and you're getting really upset by this person, you've got an external locus of control. And a lot of people in our lives have that. We can't get on because we're worried about what other people think, what other people say. Whereas if you really want to be a top player, you need an internal locus of control. If you notice some of the top players, anything can happen and they will be in their own space, and they will just, whatever happens, they just stay there. If it goes wrong, they just keep still, and they have this beautiful internal locus of control. You know, Federer, I think, was probably a really good example of that. You know, he'd lose a point, doesn't matter, he'd let it go, and he'd do the next point. And so a lot of us here, it's worth looking, how much energy am I giving to other people? How much external am I losing, and what's that cost to me? It's not that you do everything and, you know, say to everyone, I'm not listening to you, I'm not doing anything, but ultimately we're human beings and have to make our own choices. And sometimes people don't like our choices, and often the people who give us advice and tell us what to do have no idea what they're doing as well. It's always good to get advice and stuff from people who know what they're doing. So it's really important to get a really good internal locus of control. So yeah, one of the other things that I get, and this is a useful thing to do, and I'll get you to do this now, is actually our breathing changes a lot. So with sports people, I like to sort their breathing out as well. First of all, it gives them more energy, it gives them more oxygenation, but also it slows the brain down. So, so we're going to do now the 3-4-5, where you breathe in through your nose for 3, hold for 4, breathe out for 5, and we'll just do 4 of those. So after 3, in through your nose for 3, hold for 4, breathe out for 5. And just see how you feel now and how you feel after doing that 4 times. So, okay, first time, breathe in for 3, hold for 4, and breathe out for 5 through your mouth. And great, and breathe in your nose for 3, hold for 4, and breathe out for 5. Breathe in for 3, through your nose, hold for 4, and breathe out for 5. And the last one, breathe in for 3, hold for 4, breathe out for 5. So who here feels calmer? Yeah, amazing, isn't it? The brain's always looking at the body, and the body's always looking at the brain. So the brain's always thinking, if you're like, a lot of people hold their breath or, you know, breathe deeply, and the brain's looking at that saying, well, if you're breathing really, really shallow and really quickly, there must be danger. If actually something happens, like you're losing a point, but you slow your breathing down, it tells the brain that you're in control, and it will reduce anxiety. So it's a really important thing to do. So the other thing that tennis players do, and if you do things, they analyze their opponent all the time. They're looking for ways to win. How's my opponent doing it? How can I do it? Actually, that opponent's backhand's not very good. I'm going to keep hitting it to the backhand. They analyze. And one of the big things is making choices, not decisions. Does anyone know the difference between a choice and a decision? Yeah, it's really important. Decisions are often your way. So if I said I want you to decide whether to buy a house or not, you'll probably get sheets of paper, write pros, cons, and do all of that. You'll do a lot of stuff. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of thought, and you're using sort of your brain for that, especially your frontal part. Whereas to choose, you can just choose to do a shot. In other words, I could say, do you want chocolate or vanilla ice cream? And if you say, I want chocolate ice cream, and I say, why? And you say, well, I like chocolate ice cream, and you've decided you've not chosen. But if you say, no, I've just chosen chocolate, no reason, I've just chosen it, actually it frees the brain up to make quick choices and stuff. So a lot of times when, say, a tennis player is thinking of serving, they can choose to serve down the line, they can choose this. They don't have to sit and analyze every time. Choice is often, again, especially when it comes from your gut and you know what you're doing, a lot of times is a better thing than decisions. Not always, obviously, make your own thoughts on that. But sometimes our decisions are there because we're a bit frightened to move forward in our lives, and we want to use logic to stop us going. Not that we shouldn't use logic in creating what we want, but is the logic that you're using there to slow you down and not allow you to your purpose? So, the other thing that you'll find with athletes, the more the pressure gets, the slower the brain goes. Isn't that amazing? Who here's found that? Who's here is good at that? Anyone works in medicine or anything? Yeah, so you guys at the bottom table, we've got some nurses and the top pharmacists from the Lula bar at the bottom. Do you find that when something happens, you slow down and you calm down? It's good training. The army's like that. When I worked for the army for a long time, and the army boys, when they went out and they get shot at, they're so well trained, they actually slow down their breathing and they're actually more relaxed. Amazing. And athletes train like their life depended on it. They also go, like any of us, once you're getting better and better, any slight improvement they will go for. Whether it's a diet thing, whether it's fluid, whether it's a training thing, and of course whether it's how their mind works. And often, a lot of times, the mind stuff that athletes are doing is the last thing that they do. But actually the reality is it should be really the first thing that they do. So that's important. Okay. Also, they treat success and failure like they're both the same imposters. And I'll be very impressed if anyone can tell me the poem I've sort of stolen that from. Now, has anyone here read If by Rudyard Kipling? Yeah, one of my favourite lines on it. In other words, if you fail, you're not the worst thing in the world, and if you're succeeding, you're not the best thing in the world. They treat those, so when they succeed, they actually still focus, how can I get better? And if they fail, they're not going to beat themselves up and make it terrible. They're going to just focus on the next game. And that's really important, because when you lose, you learn. So when something difficult happens, if you learn from it, then you can move forward. We all go through difficult things happen to us, but sometimes when we come through that, 5 years later, the fact that we went through it has taught us a lesson that saved us this time. So it's really important. When you lose or something bad happens, you learn. So, and again, we'll talk about shoulds. So we talked about shoulds earlier. Shoulding yourself, I should do this, I should do that. I mean, if I sort of go, you know, if I said to one of you, I think you should you're wearing a lovely white shirt, what's your name, by the way? Damon. So, lovely white shirt, but if I said, I think you should be wearing a blue shirt, how dare you come in here with a white shirt? I mean, obviously I'm just being silly, but how would you feel if I was being...
I think feel pretty annoying, because I really like the shirt.
And it's a very nice, I knew you did. So, and we can should ourselves. So of course, what it is you could wear a blue shirt, or you could wear that white shirt, which is a lovely white shirt. It is a lovely white shirt, so. There you go. But you get the understanding between shoulding and coulding. You know, it's not you should do this, you could do that. Because suddenly it changes everything. I should have done that shot, or I could have done that shot. Can you see, can people feel the difference? Because, and it's so ingrained, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should. And you're basically beating yourself up rather than, I could have done that shot, therefore, next shot I'm going to do that shot. I'm not sure if I put in being in the zone, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Because one of the things that I taught my footballers is the 3 watts. Has anyone heard of the 3 watts? Love the 3 watts, heard it years ago. And whenever anything happens, and this takes them away, I've got the soccer players, I'm actually doing the psychology for the Wanderers here, is they do what's happened in reality. Often they're now actually not saying that line, but they're saying the second line is my favourite, so what? So they lose a goal, what happened? We lost a goal. So what? Now what? So do you all want to practice that? All the football teams practice it for hours. So we're only going to do a couple of times. So are you ready to say what happened in reality? Okay, can we do that louder? What's happened in reality? Yeah, so what? And most important, flesh your table at the back, now what? Now what? And it's amazing, we get into these states of mind, it's terrible. And actually, if we just do the 3 what's, we get back into where am I going to go? What's happened in reality? I don't know, I lost my car keys. So what? Now what? I'll find them or I'll get a bus. So being in the zone. So does anyone know what the zone is? Yeah, so tennis players reach that point where their conscious mind spreads apart and they're just subconscious. And everything slows down. If you've ever been doing work, I'm sure we've all been in the zone, and you feel like you're writing something and you feel like you've been writing for 5 minutes, and then you realise it's 4 hours. You've been in the zone and you've often done better than you could have ever done before. And so the more you practice your art, the more you get into the zone. And actually what happens in the zone, the brain slows down. So with like my number one tennis player, when I asked her, what was it that the player did that beat you? She said, well, she kept hitting the back line. And I said, is that important? She said, yeah, the person who hits the back line the most wins. That was her feeling of tennis. So actually one of the things that we looked at was just imagining the back line was really big, and then it got so big that every time she hit the ball, she'd hit the back line. And she got so good at it, she'd be in the zone, she was playing somebody much higher than her, and she'd hit it, and she kept hitting the back line, which would really annoy their opponents because she got in the zone. Andre Agassi talked about it. He says, he wrote a really good book about this. He was a tennis player for people who are a lot younger than me. And he said that when Pete Sampras was serving, and he used to serve at something like 150 miles an hour, the ball would slow down. I'd have so much time that I could choose where to hit it. It was just easy when he was in the zone. So, and that's practice. Practice gets you into those places. So you need those routines and habits to get into that state. And of course, when you've got a player, they're going to have times in the zone and times out of the zone, and we have to work on the psychology of both of those. So one of the other questions I ask them is, how do you play in different emotional states? And you'll be surprised, some people, anger, they actually improve. Some people are better calm, serenity, sometimes feeling a bit stressed, they can really, really help them, and that's important. And again, just reminding you that actually when you're there playing, often joining your inner child, actually imagining that the 7-year-old you is on court with you at the same time, can be really, really helpful for athletes, especially if they've had a negative effect and they're trying to bring them along. So integrity is really important. So that's one thing I like from my athletes. Does anyone got an idea what integrity might look like?
Keeping to your word.
Keeping to your word, doing what you say when you say you're going to do it. And if you break it, you sort it out. It's really important. So, and it's not just your word to others, it's your word to yourself. So if you say you're going to go to the gym at 5 every morning, you do that. And integrity is so important. Right, now it's your turn. So are we all excited? Yay! Okay, good, excited. So again, we have a choice to get out of our comfort zone. I'm sure all of us want to sit in our chairs and not participate. But actually it's about getting out of your comfort zone. We're never going to achieve what we really, really want to achieve in our comfort zone. We have to keep pushing ourselves. And again, as I said earlier, I think it's a westernized fallacy that we're meant to be comfortable all the time. And I think this sort of dulls us. And I think our important thing is to be on purpose. And that is outside this. So what I want you to do is just imagine that you're serving to win at Wimbledon. So I want you all to close your eyes. You're at Wimbledon, you're about to serve. Where do you need to be? I'm going to give you a few seconds there. So you visualize it first, you see it, you be it, you achieve it. And that's the same with our lives. That's what the athletes need to do. They need to see what they're going to do. A lot of athletes will actually play the match in their heads before they go. Strikers will imagine them scoring a goal as they're driving to the match. They'll actually go through in their head, I'm going to get the ball here, I'm going to curve the ball like this, I'm going to feel it, see it, taste it, smell it. They do all of that, and that's really important. So what I thought we will do, if you're all happy to do it, is you did the first bit of serving at Wimbledon, but why don't you all stand up and imagine you're actually about to serve? I told you I wanted you out of your comfort zone. So you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I'll be very impressed if you do. I'm very impressed. So make sure you've got room, and just imagine you're there, you're looking down, you're about to win Wimbledon. Yeah, you're serving, by the way. And just imagine how you feel, you're ready to serve. What state of mind do you need to be? What are you thinking about? You're clearing your mind, you're deciding, are you going to go down the line? Are you going to go out wide? So just for a few seconds, think about it, and then without hitting anyone or hurting your arms, so I don't want any injuries here, so yeah, I want you to actually do that serve and imagine you've got an ace. Because one of my questions for you is, when did you, well done by the way for that, because it's hard to get out of a seat. I'm good at sitting down and not participating normally. When did you last play full out? I think that's a good question to ask yourselves. Are you in your comfort zone? When did you last play full out? Because to really achieve what you want to achieve, to make that orphanage a reality, you're going to have to play full out. So keep picking on you, don't I? And the question is, of course, what goal do you have that you play full out for? Often it's a big goal, you know, and that's a really important thing. We often fail our goals because we make them too small. Because it's the attention you put on a goal that's the most important thing. So what a lot of people do is they create a goal and they go, okay, I don't really want this, but it's easy, so I'm going to go for this goal. Like, I'm going to go for a job that gives me an extra $5,000 a year. You know, it's not what I really want. But then you go for the job and you don't get it because your energy's not right for it. And you think, well, if I can't get that job, then I can't really get the job I want. And that's actually not true, because if you go for the job you want, your energy's right. And you're right, and that's why playing full out and finding your purpose is so important. You know, and the question is, you're exhausted, you go to train, you know, and you really don't want to get out of bed at 4 in the morning, it's raining, it's cold. If you know that this is the training session there's going to be a difference between you winning and losing, you will push yourself forward. And we often have to do that. We go back to that moment where we want to give up because it all feels it's going to go to rubbish. But actually, you do that one extra thing, and sometimes you just elevate yourself. So again, just talk among yourselves for a second. How much are you influenced from others? How much do others annoy you, if you imagine on it? Looking at how much do you have internal versus external locus of control. So I'll let you chat for just a couple of minutes. So is anyone here who thinks they might have an external locus of control for life? Yeah. And how, if you mind, how does that work for you, Linda? Good. Do you think more internal would help? Or, yeah, I do. I've got an external locus of control I have to work hard on. All the things I talk about, I'm rubbish at, which is why I work so hard to get good at them, which is why I give the lectures, because it's not naturally me. I should myself, so I do all these things. So I'm not here saying, look at me, I have an external locus of control quite often, and I have to keep working on me having an internal locus of control and coulding more than shoulding and things like that. So absolutely. Who here thinks they've got an internal locus of control? Okay, so I want you to imagine you're taking a penalty at the World Cup final. Why don't we all stand up and give a hand? Yeah! Oh, well done. I know one scored. Who scored? Who scored? Yeah. Oh, you scored for Tottenham, did you? So that's okay. You kept them up. That's good. So that's good. Okay, and the last bit, your last bit of interaction, as I said, if I'm going to stand up here, I'll get you to do things, is you've won the World Cup and all of these are your teammates. So maybe just go around congratulating everyone for what a great game they've played. All right, I think you've all done very well.